What are gaps that you see in general when you're looking at these applications? And there are a lot of agents out there that don't do cannabis regularly and they want to put it with one of their markets for commission purposes to, feed their direct markets, whatever it is,
Mhm.
and they might miss something. What are those things that you regularly see getting missed?
Yeah, so as a wholesale broker, I think competitive advantage over retail agents that maybe have one or two direct relationships with a MGA program like Canasure or another one. GenCap, we work with pretty much every MGA program, and we also work with all of the brokerage markets out there in the industry. So the advantage we have is that we have a better sense of what every market is doing when it comes to terms and conditions within the policy itself. So like for example, we see, when we're looking at risks, like the first thing we'll look at on a policy, or one of the first things on a property policy, for instance, is, what does the wind hail deductible look like? Wind or hail storm deductibles, generally in this industry are, percentage based. So you're looking at a percentage of the total insured value is what your deductible would be. So in some cases, we might see, a 2% wind hail deductible. That's pretty standard for somewhere in the Midwest, like Michigan. But then you may look into the, more detail, and you might see a minimum wind hail deductible of $250,000. So if the TIV on that risk is lower, you look and you see 2%, that's fine. But then you see a minimum of 250,000, that can be problematic. And a lot of people don't necessarily understand what that means, or they don't communicate that to their insured, and that can become a big issue. If there's a windstorm or a hailstorm that comes through and it damages your building, you might have a massive deductible and not really see the claim payout that you're expecting. And then the same thing with on the property side, named storm is another major area of concern. So a lot of the markets, if you're right in on the East Coast, you may see named storm exclusions entirely, and that's fine as long as it's communicated to the insured and they accept that. But I think a lot of times it's not even it's not a coastal risk necessarily, but you'll see a named storm exclusion in the policy. And the named storm, you might still have some damage to your building, or contents, as a result of a named storm, and now you have no coverage. Or you'll see higher deductibles, things that are related to that. So that's like one major area on the property side. Another thing on the property side, I would say, is business income. So a lot of
Yeah.
times we're seeing inadequate limits on the business income side. These businesses are either growing or they're failing. There's really not, if you're staying kind of the same every year in sales, that's not a good thing. So a lot of these are growing businesses. And if their business income limits are not increasing, year over year, that's a huge exposure. And then also these are, businesses are, their sales may fluctuate. A lot of these are, newer businesses in some of the new states. They might have major increases in sales, or blow through their forecasted sales. So a lot of times we're looking at, do they have co-insurance on their business income, or are they using a monthly limitation where we can get rid of the co-insurance clause, which I think is really important for these newer ones that may potentially, blow through their forecasted sales.
Yeah, you stole my thunder on that business income, business interruption. I think that is underutilized. I think a coverage gap, Catherine, is as simple as it sounds. Theft is a problem in our industry. It's a leading driver of claims activity. But the problem in our cannabis space is that there's too many retailers that are checking boxes on an application, and there are multiple applications used in our industry. Canasure has one, our competitors each have their own, and they're checking a box saying, yes, this company has this kind of security system, this kind of vault, this kind of safe, this kind of camera system, whatever the cases may be. And yet when the claim happens, it turns out that that wasn't true. And it's a educational issue. It's not meant to be, in my opinion, a misrepresentation. I think it's just lack of education to an area that's brand new to a lot of us. We were all neophytes in the cannabis space at a certain point. And the problem is on the next new state or the next new agent that jumps into our space, and they say, of course they've got central station burglar alarm, of course they've got this, and of course they've got that. And then the claim happens, And then now it is a coverage gap because you're seeing claims denials from all of us. It's not just a canister problem. It's not our competitor's problem. It's an industry problem because claims are being denied because the adjusters are going out there finding that they didn't have this, and this at the security level that they said they did on the application. So the coverage gap is being created in the application process.
And that's another thing GenCap will help with. So like we'll typically review the safeguards on the current policy when they submit it to us. And then we'll kind of compare that to what the application that was submitted shows. So we find that a lot of times where, hey, you said, or on the policy, you have a safeguard for a central station fire alarm, but the application you submitted shows that they don't have one. Let's dig in here. And a lot of times we find out that, yeah, for the past 3 years, you've had a policy with a safeguard requiring that, and you didn't have it. And you're lucky you didn't have a fire loss where the alarm didn't go off. Let's get that corrected moving forward. And we'll just share that with the new market or whoever we're working with and make sure that they remove that. Or if they don't, if they're going to require it, that we get that installed and activated.
Yeah, you can't move too quickly through a process thinking that they're just benign questions because they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think people put enough importance on that. Like that is a significant exposure, not only for the insured, but for the agent. It's a huge E&O exposure. And I don't think it really gets enough attention. And I would love if that, started to get the attention it deserves.
Well, and Catherine, to Lee's point, that's the reason why agents should work with GenCap and Lee and Justin specifically, because they know this is an area of claims concern where the rubber meets the road. The whole reason why we're offering insurance is to pay a claim at a certain point. It's not to have a claim denial. Now,
Yeah.
Lee and I have, I would say, an every other week conversation relative to claims activity. And as far as I remember, I don't know of any claim denial that we've had on Lee's book. So it shows the
We'll pay you
depth
later,
of his
Jim. Good job.
expertise. Oh,
Knock on wood.
Just kidding.
hey. But it's important that the coverage that's being sold is the coverage that triggers. And when a claim does occur, you want to be there saying, well, we did ask that question the right way and we answered it the right way. So the coverage was able to trigger and the policy came forward. It didn't hold up a big stop sign and say, nope, claim denial. So that's something that really helps when you know what you're talking about. And that's why you need expertise out there.